Everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoteric and our continuing series on the Sega Dreamcast, Hikaru and NAOMI, and today we're taking a little look at a really weird one, and that is Agartha. Now this game did not come out, it was not finished. You're seeing it's an internal test version dated May 5th, 2000, and it even has a time. This is a game that I was excited about when it was previewed in magazines, and finally a few years ago somebody found the prototype and dumped it. And a lot of what I love about the Dreamcast isn't just the release games, but it's checking out a lot of the things that we didn't get, because it's one of my favorite consoles of all time, probably my favorite of all time, and to be able to check out things that never came to us is sometimes as much fun, if not more, than playing release games. Before I tell you too much about Agartha though, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe, ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, we have a Patreon link down there as well. But if you ever played D2 for the Dreamcast, Agartha is going to be very familiar. It seems to be a survival horror game set in a snowy universe, which is exactly how D2 works. And you'll see here as we take a look at the menu, it is very basic and it gives us some things at the beginning to play around with. Some of these items are functional, some of them do absolutely nothing in the game. But obviously, if you guys have been watching my channel before, or even if you're new to it, I love game preservation. I love betas, I love alphas, I love unreleased games. Anything that's not what we usually get, I am very excited about. And when Agartha finally did, leak out onto the internet, it was an awesome time. And it's great to see, what the Dreamcast was capable of later in life before things, started to get canceled. And as you'll hear that music come in the background, I'll let you listen to it soon. This game has a super creepy atmosphere, even if I don't know what's going on. It's also interesting that the main character is just an older guy. Maybe he's in his late 50s, early 60s. Not really what we're familiar seeing, but I just love whatever universe Agartha was going for. We have this woman over here with what looks to be wool on the end of a stick, and she's knitting or, some sort of textile art. But I want to know what's going on in Agartha, and we don't really know much from, this test demo, but just being able to play it and check it out, not only from a preservation standpoint, from just being able to see something that we were supposed to get, it's always a lot of fun. And it looks really good. I mean, for Dreamcast, her facial animation there, all the polygons looks pretty decent. Even the fact that she shifts herself in the chair to get more comfortable, it's really well put together, and for a tech demo, it is great. And we do have a firearm in the game, which basically does almost nothing. That's why I shot at the old lady, because nothing's really going to happen there. But clearly there was going to be, a combat mechanic. This is going to be, if it releases, full survival horror. And this is the type of thing that I wish somebody would actually pick up and decide to finish, even if it was for a modern console, because as far as games that weren't released are concerned, or even tech demos, everything going on in Agartha really makes me want to know what the story was supposed to be, and I want to see more of this game in action. As far as what we can see, there's about 5 different buildings that we can go into, and a lot of environment we can walk around in, but that's about it. There's zero information about the story other than what we can infer. We'll see here that there's a book on the table, and I'm assuming that would have been collectible had this game came out, because we have that same book in our inventory right here. So it seems like any item that you could potentially find in the game demo, and I haven't found all of them, exists in your inventory. But you can't pick the book up. You can drop the book on the ground, but if you drop anything out of your inventory, you cannot pick it back up. You have to restart the demo and just basically, go from there. But honestly, the only thing you really need is the flashlight and the handgun. Everything else, if there is a use for it, I have not figured it out. But I just love how the rooms are set up and how everything feels. But what I'm going to let you do is just listen to the soundtrack for a quick minute, because it is haunting and eerily creepy. I mean, I don't know the inspiration for where that soundtrack came from whatsoever, but it has a really John Carpenter synth feel to me, and that to me is just the horror that I'm used to. But there's just something about how that song plays that definitely creeps me out, even though there's really nothing scary going on in the game other than a few things that you can look at. But I would have loved to have heard what else they were going to do with the soundtrack, because if that's the one track they had so far, if it was as good as that, I think we really would have had a massive hit on our hands had this come out, because there's something about the demo that makes it look like it's going to be a bad game, and you can get past some of the boundaries here. That carriage is definitely put there to keep you from coming over here, because you can clearly see the world just 100% ends, but being able to clip through things, you see items that you weren't supposed to see even in this test demo. That poor horse that was carrying that cart right there, our friend Mr. Ed, has perished and he is covered in snow. And if I wasn't able to walk through that cart, I never would have seen it. So if you do download this game and check it out, do be aware that there's a lot of times you basically have to force your character into places that you should be able to go, but the game geometry is just fighting. You'll see here that if I just continue to walk forward, I can kind of push myself into stuff and be able to get a closer look at areas that were just intended to be set decoration in the background. But I mean, it runs stable enough. This game has never crashed on me. It's never frozen. I've gotten myself stuck in a few places I couldn't get out of, but that was my own fault. And you can definitely just keep walking into the ether and never know how to get your way back. But this is something that you can download and burn on a disc or put on your GDEMU or put on your mode, and it will play. But going back inside again, I love just wherever this was set. It kind of looks like Romania or Eastern Europe to me, especially with that hat right there. You know, it definitely doesn't have a setting named, and I'm doing a little bit of a mean thing by looking at both players' cards here. But it's just so intriguing, and it does seem strange even to me to put a game that's just a tech demo on one of my top 10 favorite of all time Dreamcast games lists, but I love checking things out that we didn't get. And I don't know what's going on with that. I'm going to call it a babka. I'm not sure if that's the correct term, but that's what came into my head. Just seeing the things that people were working on, because when Dreamcast, you know, was coming out, this was an era when we finally started getting a lot of previews online, even if we had to use dial-up, and if you do shoot the guys, they will disappear eventually, and I'm sure had Agartha came out, it would have been a lot more visceral response to that bullet than just fading away into nothingness. But I'm curious what the game was supposed to be. I mean, there's not a lot of information on it. We know it's survival horror. We know it's set in the snowy wilderness. I'm presuming it's set in Eastern Europe just based upon the different set decorations and the costumes of the non-playable characters. But that's kind of what we get to know about the game. And that's something that I actually kind of like about it, and what I kind of like about games that didn't release in general is that my mind starts filling in the blanks about what these games really were supposed to be. I wonder what was supposed to be over the ridge. I wonder what was supposed to be going on with these characters. If we could have talked to them, if they were hostile. What's gone wrong in the world of Agartha, and why are we here investigating it? Because you'll see here as we go into this shed, we're going to start seeing a little more of the horror element. Something's not right in this world. We have this man hanging. Did he hang himself? Did somebody hang him? We don't really know, and we'll never know because the game didn't release. So for me, being able to fill in those blanks in my own imagination is a lot of the reason why I enjoy this tech demo and why I enjoy unreleased games in the first place. It's just a way for you to, you know, stretch your imagination and wonder about what it was that it was supposed to be. And Dreamcast has a lot of that. But listen to the sound effects really quick with the wind. It's really interesting. It's almost positional audio in the way you turn the camera. Hopefully that comes through as effectively on your speakers when you're watching this on YouTube as it does in my studio monitor headphones, because that wind noise is moving from the left to the right channel. It's depending on what way you're moving the camera. But you'll see here we have all these different heads hanging in this little closet, and the story apparently is these are photographs of the developers that were textured mapped onto those heads just for the demo. It's not as creepy as the guy hanging in the back of the shed in the first building I showed you, but it certainly still does add a little bit of the horror element to it. But Again, some of these buildings just don't really have that much to see. They're just set decoration, but this was only intended to be a technical demo, what they could pull off on the Dreamcast, what they could make it look like. It was meant to become a full game, but none of the story elements, none of the combat are in there. And I've never heard rumor of a further along a development version of Agartha being available, so honestly, this is basically the only thing we have to look at. But for me personally, checking out these betas, these prototypes, these unreleased games that were never finished is a lot of joy because it gives me a look into the development of the game itself and the what could have beens for Dreamcast. And that's a lot of what my channel is. Other than talking about things I love and hardware I love, I spend a lot of time talking about things that never actually happened. But you can go up here past that gate and walk into the snow, and I'm assuming you were able to find other things, but all we're really going to find out here is a white expanse. Short of that, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them down below. I love chatting with you guys, and we will be back next Tuesday with another episode in our Dreamcast series, and we'll have videos on Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday as well. But as I mentioned earlier, if you could do me a huge favor, go down below and hit like, subscribe, ring that notification bell. Definitely helps us out. And if you're watching this, it's definitely not winter, but trust me, don't wander off into the wilderness alone, or you too could be stuck in the white void of death. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye-bye.